Are you getting frustrated with what to feed a teenager who's always hungry? Everybody knows that teenagers have a huge appetite. It seems like you need to feed them constantly to satisfy their hunger. It's even more difficult where teenagers who struggle with their weight truly want to make changes, like cut down on junk food or stop overeating, and they can't. There's frustration, isolation, stress, and that's why I decided to create a recipe collection of 30 easy and healthy meals for teenagers. They're all high in protein to satisfy your teenager's hunger, and they can all be ready in less than 30 minutes. If you want to grab a free copy, go to lifestyleforteens.com/recipes. Hello, welcome to another episode of the Lifestyle and Weight Loss for Teens podcast. This is Dr. Jenny Gourgari, and today's topic, I'm going to talking about dieting in teenagers. You may have heard already that dieting is not a very effective way to get you into a healthy weight, both for adults, but I'm mainly interested in teenagers. And what we have seen in different studies is that even though diets may be effective on the short term, that means that if you do a diet for a month, that may be effective and you may lose weight. It's not sustainable over time, and it may actually get you to have the opposite results if you follow particularly very strict diet. So this was a very, very interesting study. It was published in 2003 in the Journal of Pediatrics. And what the researchers did is they got teenagers and they followed them over 2 to 3 years. And they asked them whether they diet or not, and how frequently do they use dieting as a method to control their weight. And they also collected data on their exercise and what they eat, and whether they also have other unhealthy behaviors. And then they follow their weight and their height and calculated the body mass index to see what happened in different groups according to their diet behaviors. So they initially started asking those questions in a group of teenagers in 1996, and then some of them they followed for 1 or 2 or 3 years. This was a study done between 1996 and 1999. So a total of 16,882 teenagers participated in the study. This is a huge sample of teenagers, which makes this a great study because, as I have mentioned before, the higher the people you have in a study, the more likely it is that the results you're getting are going to be closer to the truth. So when they got these teenagers, they asked them questions like, for example, during the past year, how often did you diet to lose weight? How often did you diet to keep you from gaining weight? And how frequently have you dieted in the last year? Never, less than a month, 1 to 3 times a month, once a week, 2 to 6 times per week, or every day. So the kids that were following a diet maybe 1 or 3 times a month or once a week, they were put together in a group that was named as infrequent dieters. The kids that reported dieting 2 to 6 times per week or almost every day, those were the kids that were labeled as frequent dieters. And then there were the group of teenagers that had never dieted. They were not following a diet, so they also followed this group of kids. So because activity is one reason why some people may gain or lose weight, they collected data on their physical activity. So they asked them questions like, how often did you play volleyball or soccer or basketball? So they kind of get a sense of how much activity they were doing, and they calculated a score based on their physical activity. They also gave them food questionnaires where they asked them what they were eating, and there was a questionnaire of different food items, and they asked them how frequently they had this food, like maybe once a month or once per day or 4 times per day. So in a sense, they were trying to do like a gross estimate of their dietary intake and see what they were eating and how frequently they were eating it. And they also asked them about binge eating. So if the kids had episodes at least once a month where they had days where they would eat a very, very large amount of food in a short period of time, and then they would really feel out of control during that episode of overeating, then they would characterize this as a binge eating behavior. And they also collected data on the kids that had binge eating behavior. So they followed these kids at the beginning, and then they follow them over time. And then they look at their body mass index, which is their weight for their height. And that way they could see which kids over time did better and which kids did not do so good. If you don't know what the BMI is, I invite you to go check out episode number 1, where I describe what is a BMI and how you can figure out what's a healthy BMI for your teenager, for any teenager really. So go to lifestyleforteens.com/1. Go back to episode 1 to learn more about the healthy BMI. So what they found in this study was that 25% of the girls and 13.6% of the boys were infrequent dieters, and 4.5% of the girls and 2.2% of the boys were frequent dieters. So what that tells you is that almost 30% of the girls, adolescent girls, were in some form of diet, and roughly somewhat less than 20% of boys also were following some kind of diet, whether frequent or infrequent. The percentage of dieting was more in girls than in boys, but it's still significant percent of boys reported some kind of dieting. Now, when it comes to binge eating, overall binge eating was way less common than dieting, both in boys and in girls. But it was more common in girls than it was in boys. It was less than 5%, probably closer to 2% or something like that in girls. When they followed the kids over time, what they found is that the group of children that were following some kind of diet gained more weight over time than the group of the kids that did not follow any diet. And in particular, the people that were following more dieting, the frequent dieters, were the people that ended up gaining more weight compared to the group that were infrequent dieters, and also compared to the group that never had diet. So approximately the infrequent dieters also were 5 times more likely to get involved in a binge eating behavior compared to the group that never diet. And when we look at the frequent dieters, that likelihood went up to 12 times more likely. And that is in girls, and similar results in boys. The frequent dieters that were boys were 7 times more likely to involved in binge eating behavior. What does that tell you? That tells you that the percentage of kids that have this unhealthy binge eating behavior is more common among the kids that tend to diet and follow a strict diet more frequently. And finally, the frequency of dieting was very important when they analyzed the data in regards to which boys and which girls gain weight or they had a higher BMI over time. And the researchers found that the more frequently the kids diet, the more increase they had in their weight over time compared to the kids that did not diet and or that they even had less frequently dieting behavior. So that the questions that come to mind with this amazing results is, why does this happen? And one explanation that comes to mind, and also the authors, the researchers propose, is that when somebody follows a strict diet for a certain period of time, they cannot really continue to live like that for too long. So inevitably, when you have a cycle of very restrictive dieting, then that is usually followed by periods of overeating or periods of binge eating, where it counteracts with everything, all the effort you put in the diet. So you may lose some weight with the period you are following a diet, but then you end up overeating because you are sick and tired of this restrictive type of diets, and then you overeat. They also found that the girls and boys that were following the more restrictive diets, the frequent diets, they tend to eat more carbohydrates than the kids who didn't diet, and they think that maybe perhaps that also played a role, like the quality of the food, that when you may follow a certain diet, but you choose to eat the limited amount of food that you have, you tend to make not so healthy options that they're high in carbohydrates. That's potentially one possible, another explanation. And finally, they found that the people that were dieting more frequently were more likely to also have episodes of binge eating, where again they would lose control, they would eat a lot of food in those episodes of binge eating, and that would also tend to lead to weight gain. So what is the take-home message from this great study? It is, first of all, dieting is very common among both girls and boys during teenage years. Second, binge eating behavior is more common in teenagers that follow a diet versus teenagers that don't follow a certain diet. And in particular, binge eating is actually worse the more intense the dieting behavior is among teenagers. Third, the more frequent the dieting, the more weight gain over time. So it doesn't work. In simple words, dieting, restrictive diet, doesn't work. All it does is just following a period of restrictive and overeating, which is not healthy, and it can create all kinds of unpleasant feelings. So my advice to you all is if you are following a restrictive diet, you don't have to do that if your goal is to be in a healthier weight. The healthier lifestyle is the best way. It is a sustainable way that you can follow a healthy lifestyle where you slowly build healthy habits over time that you don't have to ever give up, because it is a lifestyle. It is a habit. It's the way you live your life. So you learn how to live your life, and that's how you get into a healthy weight. And if you want to learn more about my program, where I teach you all about how to create a healthy lifestyle and be in a healthy weight, I invite you to go to lifestyleforteens.com/join and join the waiting list for the next coaching group of the Lifestyle for Teens program. I hope this was helpful, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.